Hi, welcome to Golden Eyelashes channel where we talk all about eyelash extensions, lash life, and yeah, just anything for a lash technician. Make sure you subscribe and give this video a like, it really helps me out. Today we're going to talk about inner corners, and if you're here, you are looking for ways to make lashing the inner corners easier. You're probably struggling with them. So I will give you tips and tricks that I've learned in 10 years of my lashing career. You're in for some good tips. So make sure you're watching this video till the end. So firstly, what I want to say, inner corners are hard for everyone, especially if we're just starting out. So if you're someone who just started doing eyelash extensions and you don't have that much experience, you're not alone. Everyone has that experience at first. Inner corners are really hard because they're very short lashes, they're hard to separate. Usually if someone has blonder eyelash extensions, it makes it even more difficult, so don't worry. Honestly, I feel like everyone asks this question the first time they're learning eyelash extensions, or even a couple years later. Sometimes we still struggle with them. So I'm gonna give you tips that work for me, and they work for even newbie lash technicians whenever I train them. The first most important thing is separation, and it's really obvious, but separation is really hard when you're dealing with very short natural lashes like inner corners are. But if you separate them correctly, meaning that you can visually see that they are not touching eyelash extension natural lashes next to each other, it's gonna make it so much easier to place the extension on them. So making sure that you have really good sharp tweezers, that you have proper light, that you are in a comfortable position is really, really important. So separation is the key when it comes to inner corner placement. And now I'm gonna tell you how you can separate easier. One of the tips that is very much talked about, I don't recommend it a lot, but if you're really struggling, you can use this, and that is using tape to pull up the eyelid. And it's a very tricky situation because we don't like, actually tape is kind of banned in my salon because it is really uncomfortable for the client, and you can hurt their skin if you're not using the right tape. So it's really important that you would do your research and get the softest tape that has very quite bad adhesive underneath it, so it doesn't get stuck on the skin. So, but what you can do is you can cut a very small strip of tape, and you're gonna place it near the inner corner, and you're just gonna pull the eyelid up, and you're gonna pull it up just enough to make the separation easier for you, but not opening the eye, because if the eyes are open, they can get fumes in the eyes. It gets really uncomfortable. That is why I don't recommend doing this. But if you're really struggling, it works immediately. The second way to use tape, which would be better, which I would recommend more for a newbie person, is to use the tape instead of pulling your eyelid up in here. Hopefully you can see it. You're gonna use the tape to pull it to the side. So you place the tape to the inner corner and you pull it more to the side, and what that does, it doesn't open the eye as much, meaning you're not gonna have fume issues or irritation or anything like that, but it's gonna move the skin enough to make the separation much easier. So if you are really struggling with inner corners, you can use tape to help yourself, but be very careful. Like I said, make sure you don't damage the client's skin. Make sure you're not opening the eye. Very important parts. The next really good tip, and that is what I do personally myself. For over 10 years now, I've done thousands and thousands, I don't even know, like it must be now 10,000 clients that I've done personally, is I play with the iPad and play with the iPad. It sounds really weird. But what I mean by this is when I do my lashes and when I get to the inner corner and the iPad is placed already, I move it whenever I'm doing the inner corner. So I move it either towards more to the inner corner, towards the nose more. I just move it whenever I'm taking the new natural lash. So you don't have to just place the iPad in the beginning of the service and never touch it. You should always move it, because sometimes it moves too much to the eye, sometimes it moves too much out, so your bottom lashes are coming out. So you should always be able to move it. And by the way, if you're looking for a way to place your iPads, I have a volume training, which is an online training. I'll put the link in the description, and there's a video on how to place iPad with eyes open from clients, and when clients' eyes are closed. So you have to learn how to move the pad when their eyes are closed as well. It's gonna help you out so much, especially with inner corners or whenever you have like issues and you have to move the pad around. So you need to really know that. So make sure you check the link in the description. Now, another tip that I have is, that's if you're more experienced person, meaning you've held the tweezers in your hand more than like a month, like you've done more than 10 clients, I would say that would give you enough confidence with your left hand and right hand, whichever hand you write with, but the opposite hand, which is harder to write with. Like I'm right-handed, so left hand was always harder for me to control. But now that I've done lashes, I'm actually really good with my left hand with writing and doing everything. I think it's like coordination, and using it for lash doing lash extensions like gives you that ability. So it's really cool. So if you're a lash technician, thumbs up, you can use your other hand as well. But anyway, so if you can control your tweezers, like you're very comfortable with them, then another tip what you can do is, when you're in the inner corner, you're going to place your left hand, whichever hand you separate with, and you can press your tweezers very gently into the pad. I mean, very, very gently. Like if you're not using very thick iPads, you should not do this. If you're using tape, you should not do this. You should not even be like using only tape underneath the eyes anyways. But you're very gently pressing into the pad, which instead of like pulling the eyelid up as we did with the tape, we're now pushing the bottom eyelid down, creating a little bit of gap. And it's done only for a second when you are separating it and you're placing and you're waiting for the glue to dry. The moment it's dry, meaning after 2 seconds, you take the separation hand away. So it's very gentle. Usually your client would never ever even feel it, but it's kind of like a little bit of push. And of course, like don't do this if you're not very confident with tweezers. So just a precaution. Another tip that I have is with placement. If you're doing inner corners, it's very important to place the eyelash extensions very close to the eyelid, because once you open your eyes, you can see the gap in there. So don't touch the skin, but put it very close, and it grows out very fast. So it's very important to get them as close as possible, but while being safe to the eyelid. And how you can do that is when you're taking the extension from your strip, doesn't matter if it's a classic extension, if it's a volume lash, a fan, you can hold the tweezer very close to the bottom of the extension, and that's going to give you more control on the placement on the natural lash. So if you're holding the tweezer very high in the extension, like on the tip of the extension, it's gonna wiggle, so you can't really like control where it's going to drop in that sense. So try to get closer or in the middle of the extension with your right hand, whichever hand you pick up the extension, and just place it. It's going to give you enough control to place it as close to the eyelid as possible. So I hope this helped. If you're looking for volume lash training, make sure you check the link in the description. There's a link for manual as well. So if you're interested, definitely make sure you check that out. And if you have any issues with separation or anything like that, let me know in the comments so I know what to make the videos about. Also, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to give a like to this video. I will see you in the next one.